Hi everybody, it's Tuesday, January 22nd, and it's a sunny, cold day here in Westerville, Ohio. As you know, we didn't have church on Sunday because of the bad snow. So we thought we would take a few minutes right now, and I'm going to share with you the essence of the sermon that I was going to preach Sunday. And I'm here in our sanctuary. Debbie's upstairs doing the camera and the sound. So good to be with you. And the first thing I would like to do is read to you from the Gospel of John, the second chapter, verses 1 through 12. This is the wedding at Cana. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now take some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The title of this message is Discover Epiphany Now. It's about faith. I think sometimes it's always about faith. And it's about faith, and it's about faith now, right now. Yesterday, of course, was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the United States. And whenever King Day comes around, I almost always think of one of the heroes of the faith, one of my heroes, Fred Shuttlesworth, Baptist minister. I've got some information on him here. Fred Shuttlesworth was a U.S. civil rights activist who led the fight against segregation and other forms of racism as a minister in Birmingham, Alabama. He was a co-founder of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He initiated and was instrumental in the 1963 Birmingham campaign and continued to work against racism and for the alleviation of the problems of the homeless in Cincinnati, where he took up a pastorate in 1961. Reverend Shuttlesworth was born in Mount Meigs, Alabama, and he became the pastor of the Bethel Baptist Church in Birmingham in 1953. And he was his entire life, he was on the front lines for the fight for civil rights. And I lift up now that on December 25th, Christmas Day, on December 25th, 1956, unknown persons tried to kill Reverend Shuttlesworth. They tried to kill him by placing 16 sticks of dynamite under his bedroom window. Shuttlesworth somehow escaped unhurt, even though his house was heavily damaged. A local police officer, who also belonged to the Ku Klux Klan, told Shuttlesworth as he came out of his home, "Reverend, if I were you, I would get out of town as quickly as I could." And Shuttlesworth told him to tell the Klan that he was not leaving, and quote, "I wasn't raised to run." That's a story about faith. That's a story about faith now, right now. The word epiphany in English means an appearance, a manifestation of divinity. And in the life of the church, we remember a couple of things during the celebration of Epiphany. We remember and we celebrate that the Magi who went to visit the baby Jesus were Gentiles. The Magi represent the gift of the Christ to the rest of us, the Gentiles who are not Jews. Everyone can find the faith of Christ within. Everyone of all walks of life. That's what the Magi represent. And it's about faith. And it's about faith now, right now. The wedding at Cana story only appears in John. John is the only gospel that gives us this story. And it's so important to John that he puts it at the beginning of his gospel, at the beginning of chapter 2. And I know we say this a lot. We say this from time to time, and we say it because it's true. This story is not really about a wedding. It's not really about water. It's not really about wine. Those are all metaphors pointing beyond themselves. This story is about how Christ can transform our lives instantly. Instantly. Now. Faith now. And that transformation comes in amounts beyond measure. Among other things that we're told in this story of the wedding of Cana is that sitting to the side were 6 stone water jars for the rites of Jewish purification. 6 stone water jars, and they were used for the rites of Jewish purification. In other words, they were used to wash someone's hands, to become worthy. Is this a good thing? Of course. Yes, it is a good thing. Through the Jewish faith, through the rites of purification, we wash our hands in order to become worthy. These were not just any stone water jars holding any kind of water. Very specific reasons. And we're told that there were 6 of them, and they each could hold up to 30 gallons apiece. And I worked very hard on the math, and Debbie's up there and she could tell me whether I'm right or not. I'm pretty sure 6 times 30 is 180 gallons, right? Yes, I'm getting the thumbs up. 180 gallons of water. That's a lot. And the message here is Jesus comes into our lives and we do not get what we deserve, but we get vastly more. We get more than what we asked for. Jesus transformed instantly an astonishing amount of water into wine. And this doublespeak, this wonderful doublespeak at the end of the passage when we read that you have saved the good wine until now. Our best days are to come. Our best days are to come. This is what happens when Christ comes into our lives. It's not about rules anymore. And rules, of course, are good. Rules, of course, are good. But it's not really about the rules anymore. It's about following Christ. And our lives can be transformed instantly in faith right now. Well, I kind of want to pull everything together in this way. We have a tradition in the Grote family, and it goes back to way back when I was a little boy, and my own family and I still follow this tradition, and that is on New Year's Eve. On New Year's Eve, we go to a matinee. We go to the movies. And this year, on New Year's Eve, we went to the movies and we decided to see Spider-Man. Excuse me. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I have to tell you, it was absolutely great. We loved it. We loved the narrative. We loved the action. We loved the music. I want to buy the soundtrack. And Spoiler alert here, I want to tell you that something incredible happens in that movie. And it's a story about, of course, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and most of you probably know that the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he became Spider-Man because he was bit by a radioactive spider. Now, there are theological ramifications to this because Peter Parker became Spider-Man originally because something was thrust upon him. He didn't ask for it. He got bit by a radioactive spider. And from that moment on, he was called to be a superhero, to do good things. And it was thrust upon him. In the same way that the call to Christ so often is thrust upon us. We find ourselves in situations that are seemingly insurmountable, and we're called to do good. It's thrust upon us. And the story, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Ease, the Spider-Ease is about the universe. And, excuse me, it's not Spider-Ease, it's Spider-Verse. Spider-Man is thrust into a multiple universe. And the great villain in the story is the evil Kingpin. And Kingpin has constructed a super collider. Are you following? Hopefully you're following this. Kingpin has constructed a super collider that makes time travel possible. And of course, Kingpin's the evil doer in the movie, and Spider-Man is the good guy, so you have that conflict. And all of a sudden, Spider-Man, quite unintentionally, starts traveling through time. And all these years when he thought he was alone, he's finding out that there are many other, quote, Spider-Men in other universes that also had been bit by radioactive spiders. And some of these, quote, Spider-Men aren't men at all. Some of them are women, and they are spider people, if you will, of many different walks of life, of many different colors, from countries all over the world. And you see this gathering of all of these people, almost like people that are following the same principle, like disciples around Christ. And there's one in particular, Miles. Miles' father is African American, and Miles, who's a police officer in New York City, and Miles' mother is a nurse. They live in New York City. She's a nurse, and she's Latin American. And so Miles is a high school student, and the way the narrative is written is you really kind of fall in love with Miles. He's a great kid, and he is bit by a radioactive spider. And all of a sudden now he is thrust into a calling where he has to join the team, and he has to help all the other Spider-Men take care of Kingpin, the evildoer. And Miles, the high school student, keeps trying and trying, and he keeps failing, and he keeps failing. And finally, here it is. There's a scene where Peter Parker, the original Spider-Man, and Miles is softly weeping because he just can't measure up. He doesn't have enough faith in himself. And finally, Peter Parker says to Miles, Miles, maybe you're just not ready. You just don't believe in yourself yet. Maybe you're just not ready. And Miles looks up to Spider-Man and says, how will I know when I'm ready? And Spider-Man responds, you won't. It takes a leap of faith. How will I know when I'm ready? You won't. It takes a leap of faith. Well, I was sitting there in my seat in the theater, and I about fell out of my seat. That's straight from 19th century philosophy from Soren Kierkegaard, who taught, he was the one that came up with the concept, And he said that essentially Christianity is not an act of the rational mind. Yes, we can think our way through some of these things, but, excuse me, Kierkegaard was the one who said, basically, when push comes to shove, Christianity is not about a rational choice, it's about a leap of faith. How will I know when I'm ready? You won't. It takes a leap of faith. Now, I don't want to ruin the movie for you, because I know you're all going to want to go see it. But of course, since it's an animated feature, you get to see Miles literally take a leap of faith off the top of a building in New York City. And ultimately, goodness prevails. How will I know when I'm ready? You won't. It takes a leap of faith. Fred Shuttlesworth, an incredible man of faith. Faith now. The wedding at Cana. Jesus transforms our lives instantly. And thank God we don't get what we deserve, but we get vastly more. Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse. How will I know when I'm ready? You won't. It takes a leap of faith. Discover Epiphany now. It's all about the faith. Thanks very much.